What if a 1,500-year-old prophecy holds the key to our future? A prophecy so accurate that it predicted empires' rise and fall and could reveal how close we are to the final days. With the world in chaos, could these events have been foretold? Let's explore Daniel's prophecy, already proven true, and see why time may be running out faster than we think. Could we already be in the final days? This is Premonition, and we're diving deep into the truth. The Bible as a history book, unique in its scope. The Bible is often considered a collection of religious texts, but it is also a profound history book, and not just any history book. It's unlike anything else ever written. While most history books only cover human events, the Bible spans from the creation of the universe to the prophetic vision of the end of the world. This timeline covers everything: the creation of humanity, the rise and fall of civilizations, the promises and covenants between God and His people, and, crucially, the prophecy of the end times. No other historical text is as broad and inclusive. Even the most comprehensive world history books only deal with events that have been witnessed or documented over time. The Bible, however, provides insight into the origins of life itself, a subject that no human observer could possibly record. It is not just a human history, but also a divine one, bridging both the physical and spiritual worlds. A significant feature of the Bible is its prophetic nature. Within its pages, there are 735 prophecies scattered throughout its chapters, equating to a quarter of the text being focused on predicting future events. These prophecies cover various aspects, including the fate of nations, the coming of a Messiah, and even details about the future of the world itself. Remarkably, about 81% of these prophecies have already come to pass. For example, prophecies about the destruction of certain cities, the exile of Israel, and the coming of Jesus Christ were made centuries before the events actually occurred. These fulfillments have led many to trust in the veracity of the Bible's remaining prophecies. Given that the Bible's predictions have been remarkably accurate so far, many believe that the remaining 19% of prophecies, which include the ultimate return of Christ and the final judgment, will likewise come to fruition. This belief is grounded in the historical accuracy of what has already happened, providing confidence that the remaining prophecies will follow suit. Daniel's prophecy, the beginning of a countdown. The prophetic journey within the Bible takes a particularly intriguing turn in the book of Daniel. Set during the Babylonian exile, Daniel was a young Hebrew captive who had been taken from Jerusalem by the powerful Babylonian Empire. Despite his circumstances, Daniel possessed a remarkable ability. He could interpret dreams and visions, gifts that would not only save his life, but may also play a critical role in unveiling future events that could shape our world. Daniel's story is one of divine revelation, and his prophecies are crucial to understanding the trajectory of human history, particularly in relation to the Messiah's coming and the end of days. Daniel 9, for example, contains the famous prophecy of the 70 weeks, a timeline that not only speaks of the coming of the Messiah, but may also point to the precise moment of final judgment. This prophecy isn't simply about the arrival of Jesus Christ, but it seems to provide a roadmap of future events that might still be unfolding. Many scholars and theologians believe that the prophecy is a countdown to the ultimate climax of human history. With every passing year, we could be drawing closer to the fulfillment of this prophecy, making the study of these timelines particularly important for those who wish to understand the ultimate plan for humanity. The prophecy of 70 weeks, a precise timeline. Daniel's prophecy in Daniel 9:24-27 outlines a 490-year timeline known as the 70 weeks prophecy, with each week representing 7 years. This period covers the rebuilding of Jerusalem, the coming of the Messiah, and the final judgment. Remarkably, it was given over 500 years before Jesus' birth and accurately predicted his arrival, ministry, and death. The prophecy also foretells the destruction of the Second Temple and the rise of a final empire, with the 70th week often seen as a time of great tribulation, leading to Christ's second coming and the establishment of God's kingdom. The first 69 weeks, 483 years, have already been fulfilled, which strengthens the belief that the remaining 7 years will soon unfold. Many believe we are living in the final stages of this prophetic timeline, and the predicted events could happen soon. The 70 weeks prophecy serves as a powerful reminder to reflect on history and prepare for the future. Daniel's prophecy. Break down the 3 phases. Daniel's prophecy is divided into 3 phases, each marking significant periods in history. The first 7 weeks, 49 years, the rebuilding of Jerusalem. After the exile. This phase begins with King Artaxerxes' decree in 457 BC, allowing the Jewish people to return from exile and rebuild Jerusalem. This 40-90-year period marked the restorations of Jerusalem as both a spiritual and political center. The next 62 weeks, 434 years, the time leading up to the Messiah. The following 434 years led to the arrival of Jesus Christ. This period saw various foreign dominations, including the Greek and Roman empires. The prophecy culminates in 27 AD, the start of Jesus' public ministry, marking a precise fulfillment of the prophecy. The final week, 7 years, the period that triggers the end of the world. The final phase, the 70th week, is often called the Tribulation. This 7-year period is marked by global suffering, with the wives of the Antichrist, who will make a peace treaty that is later broken. This period is believed to signal the beginning of the end times. Currently, we live between the 69th and 70th weeks, a gap that has lasted for about 2,000 years, but many believe the final 7 years could start at any time, initiating world-changing events. The prophecies start 457 BC to 27 AD. The prophetic timeline begins in 457 BC when the Persian king Artaxerxes issued a decree to allow the Jewish people to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their city and temple. This command marks the start of Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy. According to the prophecy, 483 years would pass from this decree to the arrival of the Messiah. When we calculate 483 years from 457 BC, we land at 27 AD, which is the exact time when Jesus began his public ministry. This prophecy is incredibly precise, so precise that it couldn't have been a coincidence. Jesus, in fact, began his ministry around 27 AD, which aligns perfectly with the prophecy's predicted timeline. This reinforces the belief that Daniel's prophecy was not just symbolic or ambiguous, but a clear prediction of specific events in history. What makes this even more remarkable is the fact that this prophecy was written over 500 years before the birth of Jesus, making the fulfillment of the prophecy a powerful testimony to the accuracy of biblical predictions. The mysterious gap, the church age. After the death and resurrection of Jesus, a surprising event occurred. The prophetic timeline paused. This gap, referred to as the church age, has lasted for over 2,000 years and is marked by the spread of Christianity around the world. During this time, the focus shifted from Israel to the church, as the message of salvation through Jesus Christ was spread to both Jews and Gentiles. This gap is not mentioned directly in Daniel's prophecy, but it is understood by many to be a period of grace and preparation for the eventual fulfillment of the 70th week. The church age is a time when the world is given the opportunity to come to faith in Christ and be reconciled to God. However, many believe that the church age will eventually come to a close, and the final 7 years of Daniel's prophecy will begin. When that happens, the world will enter the tribulation, and the signs of the end times will become undeniable. The final 7 years, the tribulation. The final 7 years, Daniel's 70th week, will be marked by the tribulation, a time of intense suffering, persecution, and conflict. This period begins with the rise of a global political leader known as the Antichrist, who will broker a 7-year peace treaty with Israel and other nations. On the surface, it will appear as though the world is entering a time of peace and stability. However, this peace will be short-lived. Midway through the 7 years, the Antichrist will break his treaty with Israel, revealing his true nature. This act of betrayal will lead to a series of events that will trigger God's final judgment on the world. Many believe this will include the Great Tribulation, a time of catastrophic events such as wars, natural disasters, and the rise of false religions. It will also be a time of intense persecution for Christians and Jews, as the Antichrist demands worship and loyalty from all people. At the end of the 7 years, the second coming of Christ will occur, bringing judgment upon the earth and establishing his kingdom. This marks the conclusion of the 70th week and the ultimate fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy. The Abomination of Desolation, the Great Tribulation. The midpoint of the final 7 years, Daniel's 70th week, marks a turning point in the tribulation. It is at this point that the Antichrist, a global political and religious leader, will commit the Abomination of Desolation. This event is foretold in both the book of Daniel and by Jesus himself in the Gospel of Matthew. The Antichrist will enter the temple in Jerusalem, claiming to be God and demanding worship from all people. This act of blasphemy and defilement will signal the beginning of the Great Tribulation, a period of suffering unlike anything humanity has ever experienced. Jesus, in Matthew 24:21, describes this time as great tribulation such as has not been since the beginning of the world, nor ever shall be. This moment will usher in unprecedented hardship, including widespread persecution, natural disasters, wars, and the rise of false ideologies. The persecution of believers, particularly Christians and Jews, will intensify as the Antichrist seeks to eliminate anyone who refuses to worship him. This period of the tribulation will be a time when the world experiences the height of evil, as the Antichrist establishes his kingdom, but it will also be a time when God's people must endure the greatest trials, relying on faith and divine protection in the face of overwhelming darkness. The Abomination of Desolation marks the climax of human rebellion against God, but it also signals the countdown to Christ's return and ultimate victory. The Spirit of the Antichrist. While the ultimate figure of the Antichrist will rise to power at the end of time, the spirit of the Antichrist has been at work throughout history, subtly influencing society, politics, and even the church. This spirit refers to the spirit of rebellion against Christ, manifesting in individuals, movements, and ideologies that oppose the truth of God's Word. The Bible speaks of the Antichrist as both a specific individual, the man of sin, and a pervasive spirit that embodies deception, denial of Christ, and opposition to all that is good. The spirit of the Antichrist has been active in various forms throughout the centuries, appearing in leaders who have opposed God's people or sought to establish false religions. These figures, like Antiochus Epiphanes in the 2nd century BC or other tyrannical rulers throughout history, embodied the Antichrist spirit by rejecting God's sovereignty and leading people astray. In today's world, many see the spirit of the Antichrist at work in the increasing secularization of society, the rise of relativism, and the spread of false teachings within the church. The Antichrist spirit is not merely about one individual, but rather about a growing global rejection of Christian values and truth. As we approach the end times, this spirit is intensifying, setting the stage for the ultimate Antichrist to arise, who will be the culmination of all that came before. The Battle of Armageddon, the final confrontation. At the end of the tribulation, after years of suffering and turmoil, the final showdown between good and evil will take place. This event is known as the Battle of Armageddon, which will occur in the Valley of Megiddo in Israel. This battle is not merely a physical conflict between opposing armies, but also a spiritual war between the forces of light and darkness. The Antichrist, along with his followers, will gather their armies to fight against the forces of God, led by Jesus Christ. As the armies of the Antichrist prepare for battle, the sky will be illuminated with a radiant light, Christ's return in all his glory. Jesus will descend from heaven with the armies of heaven, ready to defeat the Antichrist and his followers. The battle will be brief, as Jesus will not need to engage in a prolonged struggle. With a single command, the forces of darkness will be defeated, and the enemies of God will be cast into eternal judgment. This moment signifies the ultimate victory of good over evil, of light over darkness, and of Christ's kingdom being established on earth. The Battle of Armageddon represents the final confrontation in the cosmic struggle for the fate of humanity, with Christ emerging victorious and the Antichrist and his forces being permanently destroyed. The 1,000-year reign of Christ, the Millennial Kingdom. Following the victory at Armageddon, Jesus will establish his Millennial Kingdom, a period of 1,000 years of peace, justice, and righteousness. This reign will be characterized by the complete eradication of evil, as Christ rules with authority over the earth, bringing peace to a world that has long been ravaged by sin and conflict. During this 1,000-year reign, the earth will experience a time of restoration. The effects of sin will be reversed, and the nations will live in harmony, following God's laws and experiencing his blessings. This period will also be a time of healing for the earth itself, as the natural world is restored to its intended state. Those who have remained faithful to Christ will reign with him, and the righteous will be rewarded with eternal peace. However, even in this time of peace, there will be a final test. At the end of the 1,000 years, Satan, who has been bound during this time, will be released for a short period. This will allow for one final rebellion, as Satan deceives the nations into opposing God's rule. But this rebellion will be swiftly crushed, and Satan will be cast into the lake of fire forever, marking the permanent defeat of evil. The new heaven and new earth. After the Millennial Kingdom, a dramatic transformation will take place. The heavens and the earth will pass away, and a new heaven and new earth will be created. This new creation will be free from the effects of sin, death, and sorrow. In Revelation 21, the Apostle John describes this new world as one where God will dwell with his people, and there will be no more pain, suffering, or death. The New Jerusalem will descend from heaven, a magnificent city where God's people will live in perfect fellowship with him forever. There will be no more tears, no more separation, and no more evil. Everything will be made new, and God's plan for humanity will be fulfilled in its entirety. This eternal state is the ultimate hope for Christians, a world where God's presence is fully manifested, where believers are reunited with him, and where peace, love, and joy reign forever. It is the culmination of God's redemptive work throughout history, where he brings about a perfect eternal future for his people. As the world approaches its end, believers are reminded to remain faithful to Christ, who will ultimately overcome all evil and establish his eternal kingdom. As we look forward to the new heavens and new earth, we are reminded to live in accordance with God's will and to place our hope in His promises for the future.